2020. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to get out and enjoy the first couple of days of fall, have really nice weather, at least here in the eastern part of Virginia. Hopefully that's the same throughout the state. Pleased to be joined this morning by Mr. Dan Swafford, Program Associate with Virginia Cooperative Extension. Dan was just talking about his long, extensive career in teaching agricultural programs and being with Virginia Tech. So we're really fortunate to have Dan joining us this morning, and he's going to share some updates and comments on equipment safety and farm safety as an effort here. As those of you may or may not know, this week is actually National Farm Safety Week and Health Week. It's a national initiative that's put forth in this week that we're currently in right now, which would be September the 20th through the 26th is National Farm Safety Week. So in an effort to coincide with that and help provide some information, we've asked Dan to come forward and speak today on equipment safety, keeping everyone safe on the farm, and hopefully just, everyone can take a few moments from the really busy harvest schedules and just listen to some of these comments to, hopefully prevent any unfortunate mistakes or accidents on the farm. So we just thank Dan for joining us this morning. Thank everyone else that's on the line with us this morning. And just a quick housekeeping note before we get started. If you have any questions or comments, we ask that you just hold those to the end of Dan's presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments, hopefully facilitate a little discussion. So without further ado, Dan, we appreciate you joining us, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, folks. As Robbie said, I'm from Virginia Tech, but don't hold that against me. I'm here today to talk about safety, especially this time of year in harvest time. And as I was talking to Robbie earlier, we have kind of a unique situation. Normally, during harvest time, if you have children or grandchildren at home, they go off to school and the harvesting takes place while they're gone. This year, with a lot of the mixed schedules, hybrid schedules schools have, we have children at home now in the daytime. And I have grandchildren now, they're still in school, and they might get done with school in an hour or so, and then dad or grandpa pop in and said, "Hey, are you done with your studies?" And they said, "Yeah, we're done. Can we go help you?" And we're getting a lot more children and young adults, teenagers on the farm during harvesting in the daytime. Before, kids would go off to school, come home, and then go out to the field. They might be out there a few hours and then come in. Now we have a chance for kids are out there all day long. And the first thing I want to talk about is keeping children safe. I've got some real startling statistics, and I want to talk about them this morning because we have a lot of accidents on the farm. Each year, about 400 people, 400 farmers, and that includes the children, are killed on the farm. Let's take with kids. The first thing I want to throw out, and these are the things that startle people, and my wife and I are at a great disagreement with this, and my daughter this morning, and it's hard to imagine that a child in the United States dies every 3 days from an accident on the farm. And if we break that down, as I say, every 3 days in the United States, a child is killed on the farm. Let me repeat that one more time. It's so startling. A child dies every 3 days. That's 100 kids that are killed on the farm. And again, that's, to me, very startling. I know I was talking to my daughter this morning, who's a school teacher, and her and I were going back and forth on the phone. She said, "Dad, when I grew up, I used to sit on Grandpa's lap." And I imagine I have a few grandpas out here this morning that are listening to me that are saying, "Yeah, probably every one of my kids sat on my lap sometime when I was farming." I have a twin brother, and him and I taught 82 years of agriculture. He taught 43, I taught 39. My earliest memories of my brother are sitting on the back of an 8N Ford. Now that dates me right there, with my twin brothers, both of us standing on one arm of the 3-point hitch. Luckily, nobody got hurt. A few years back, my wife and I got into an argument. She had a picture of her ex-husband carrying her kids in the front end loader of his tractor. And I was going off the wall saying, man, that's dangerous. Oh, no, it's not dangerous. It's so cute. We have a tradition, and traditions are very hard to break in the United States, where kids help out on the farm. We've been doing that for hundreds of years. But we need to, if they're going to do that, we need to exercise some safety. The number one way children get hurt on the farm is somebody backs over them with a tractor or a piece of equipment. One child a day in the United States is injured by grandma or grandpa or dad or mom backing them over the top of them with a riding mower. A few years ago, up where we live, we had a child that was backed over by a grandpa, mangled her leg. Terrible situation. What would you feel like if you backed over a grandchild or a child? Things that we need to do to prevent that are real simple. A lot of times we have to just say, hey, you need to stay in the house. Make sure somebody's watching them. It doesn't take but a second for that grandma or grandpa, mom or dad to think the kids are here and they're not. You know, most of the people in the situation I was talking about, grandpa was going, I wish it could have been me. I've lived my life pretty well injury-free, where this girl is going to have a mangled, she ended up losing her leg, handicapped life the rest of her time here on earth. Folks, watch your children, watch your grandchildren, make sure they're somewhere else. This year is very different than years in the past. Like I said, years in the past, kids were at school. I taught high school agriculture, as I say, 39, 40 years. And, you know, kids would get off the bus and come up and say, well, after I leave, I'm going to go home and help on the farm. That time was very little compared to what it is now. A lot of these hybrid classes, the kids can take, you know, when and where they want to during the daytime, and then they can head out and work on the farm. We're going to have a lot more kids on the farm, so we're going to have to make sure that that is an important step. Now, we're going to leave that and move into the overall scheme of things as far as injuries. As I said earlier, about 400 farmers are killed each year on the farm. Another thing that we're going to have to look at, and then this is not kind of dealing with any specific piece of equipment, are the injuries in confined spaces. Injuries where we get people suffocating in grain bins or silos. Again, up where I live, a couple of years ago, we had a whole family that was killed with a silo because they went up, one got caught in the grain, another one went up, tried to get them out, tried to get another one out. And actually, yeah, it was a silo. And the whole family was lost. Precautions have to be taken to make sure, and again, both of these things we've talked about so far, we haven't really talked about machinery. It's just the hazard of working on the farm. You know, go up in a silo. Each year in the United States, about 60 people are killed working in a silo or in a grain bin, where they get caught in it, it sucks them down in it, and they end up being fatalities. Again, one I was looking at a couple of days ago, where a 13-year-old boy, then another one, a 19-year-old boy. And a lot of you say, well, 19 is an adult. You ever teach a class of seniors, you know it's not, they're not all adults. And it doesn't take a second for a person to be sucked down in one of those bins. Other things we need to look at, and this is just general safety on the farm. And We see this again this time of year, harvest year. I can think of a couple of them. Last year in the county over from us, older farmer, older than me, he was up in his 70s, got up, out combining, and corn got caught in the headers. He went down, didn't turn the combine off. Everything was still running. He was trying to get stalks of corn out of the header, pulled him in, and crushed him. His grandson, again, as farmers get older, we see a lot of grandsons, came up, pulled up with the pickup truck, and found his granddad dead in the header. Never try to unclog anything with the machinery, whatever it is. Hay baler. Man and wife down baling hay. Husband is out there working on the baler. The baler's still running, and there's a clog in it. He reaches up. He gets pulled into the baler. His wife runs over to help him. Neighbors find both of them dead in the baler. Always make sure that you turn off the equipment, whatever you work on, whether it be a combine, tractor, hay baler. Make sure that you've turned these off before you start working on them. Lawnmowers, and again, I'm talking about machinery on the farm. Have a friend several years ago. She was out in her backyard. Mower got clogged. She reached down under it, took off one finger, her index finger. 10 years later, same thing happens. She reaches down, it clogs up. She reaches down, same hand, took off the other finger next to it. Always turn things off if you're going to, machinery off if you're going to work with them. Always turn things off. Another thing that we need to look at, and again, we're talking about harvest season now. Folks, take some time to rest. Anytime when we start making mistakes is when we're tired. And farmers are notorious for putting in the hours. I grew up on a farm in Missouri, up north of the river, Missouri River, not the Potomac out there, your all's neck of the woods. And my mother always used to laugh that one day Dad was out farming, and he needed some lunch. So Mom had walked over in the field, taken him lunch, and she walked back, and we had about 100 head of ewes at the time, and a couple of rams out there, and one of the rams decided to keep Mom around for a while because Mom was walking back from Dad, and the ram would come up and smack her in the behind, and she ended up spending all day on a stump waiting for Dad to get done with the farming. Folks, take some time off, and relax. You're out there with a combine. Go back to our kids again. Tractor. Anytime you have a cab on a piece of equipment, you're riding there in the cab. Make sure nobody's in there with you unless you got an extra seat, because they're going to end up getting jostled around, going up against things if they're not secure in there. One of the major accidents, and again, we're talking about just general machinery, is that PTO shaft, the power takeoff shaft. Growing up, again, I had a good friend, and he was a couple of years older than us, and he didn't have any arms. This was back before they had the shields on the PTO shaft. He got caught up in the PTO shaft and it jerked both his arms off. And again, we talk about we can't We can drive in reverse, but we can't make time go in reverse. We can't, that boy's his whole life, that young man, now an old man, has been without arms because of just a split second mistake that he made. Now, folks, I want to talk about another thing here, which is real important. And then I'll talk a little bit on tractors, and that's moving equipment. Moving equipment from place to place. Now, tractors normally run about between 10 and 20 miles an hour. You're driving in a car or a truck, they're going 50, 60 miles an hour. It doesn't take very long for that car to catch up with that tractor. Now, I've got one of the newer vehicles. I got a new pickup, and it's equipped with the collision avoidance. And it was so cool. A couple of days ago, I was driving around, I think out to the college farm, and all of a sudden the brakes start coming on the car, on my pickup, because the radar in there, the sensors could sense me coming up so quickly behind the vehicle in front of me. It wasn't a farm vehicle, but nevertheless, my brakes automatically went on. My screen went blank saying that I'm the collision avoidance. Folks, that's really nice, but we didn't have that until just the last couple of years. First thing that you need to think about is when you're going to move that piece of equipment, do your lights work? Do your flashers work? Does the vehicle have those? Now, we see a lot of vehicles out, a lot of farm equipment out there that's 50 years old. I've been out of high school for 50 years, and back then, some of them had them, some of them didn't. We got vehicles out there that's 70 years old. Make sure those flashers work. Make sure you have that slow moving vehicle sign. If you're pulling a wagon or another piece of equipment behind you, make sure that SMV sign is on there. Watch when you're driving. I always thought it was neat. When I go over to Richmond, I have kids, grandkids in Richmond, and the sun comes up early over you all than it does over us over in the mountains because of the curvature of the earth. Everybody always wants to get out and get started early. Wait till the sun comes up if you can. Don't get out on the road at night if you can avoid it. Now, I know there's times when you have to, because people get tied up with work. You want to get that last field done. You want to get everything put away, and you want to make sure people can see you. Excuse me. I could tell stories. We had a neighbor of ours that was killed. Again, a young man, 18, 19 years old, moving a tractor at night, and somebody ran into the back of him. Back before we had cabs, back before we had seat belts, and he became a projectile in the air. Don't move after night. Make sure all your lights are running. Now, another type of accident that happens when you're moving equipment, and as tractors get bigger, they get taller. You got a cab on top of them. Sometimes you got equipment behind you. It happens. County over from us, farmer's moving a piece of equipment. He's got a front end loader with the bucket up high.
Robert, I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think we did, Mike. I was just checking to see. I don't see his name listed there. We may have lost Dan. I'm not sure. He may not have a good connection or something, but maybe he'll be able to come back and join us. But while we kind of wait and see if Dan's able to come back, I did post in the chat window there for folks that are with us via Zoom. That's the link to the National Education Center for Agricultural Safety's webpage. If you have a few moments, you can take a look at that link. There's a lot of really great resources there. They actually just recently posted a long strain of safety videos on that web page, and you can find some of those there. A lot of different stuff, as Dan was mentioning, on grain bin safety, PTO safety, moving equipment up and down the roadways, safety in regards to that. Just a lot of different topics as he's touched on this morning. You can find resources for that on that page. So I think Laura, I see she's sharing that there now. So thanks, Laura. A lot of different stuff there. They've got some webinars and stuff that are being offered this week on all different types of safety aspects and presentations. So if you scroll down, Laura, you can see there those videos I was talking about PTO safety, tractor safety, all sorts of stuff. So just some things to take a look at if you run an agricultural business or farm, if you've got employees around. During the winter months, the slow periods, it may not be a bad idea to, to just touch on some of these topics with your farm workers and hopefully keep everyone safe on the farm and avoid some of these accidents like we've heard Dan speak of this morning. I don't know. I was just checking. I don't see Dan listed anymore. Stephanie, I don't know if you have a way to call Dan and see maybe if he's lost connection or if he'll be able to come back and join us this morning to finish up. But those are a lot of really great resources there on that website for farm safety. You can log on. I think you can create an account to be able to view some of those materials. If you do have workers, I think there's also some OSHA trainings and those type of things there as well. So a lot of really great resources for the topic that we're talking about this morning. I saw someone just popped in on a line. Maybe that's Dan.
Robbie, that was Dan's phone number, so I just texted him asking him if he was having trouble.
Yeah, I know a lot of the systems have been quite a bit overloaded here over the past weeks with a lot of different schools and universities using a lot of these online platforms. So I think that's probably, between that and maybe he doesn't have a great reception where he's at. But Mike, Stephanie, anything y'all, Bobby, I know you've done a lot of work in this field before. And any comments or things you'd like to say while we maybe hopefully can wait for Dan to come back and join us?
I just spoke to Dan and we're trying to get him connected by phone. So hopefully that will work.
The only thing I would mention is that there is a list of publications on our BCE site on wellness and safety, and it has several publications in that arena as well, so for your use.
I believe he's on now, Robbie.
Yeah, I see him popped up there. Dan, I believe you have to press, I think it's *6 to unmute yourself if you can hear me.
Laura, can you make him a co-host?
Hello?
Can you hear us, Dan?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome back.
Oh, hey, not a problem. All righty. Yeah, what do I want to go ahead and get started again?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on just a second.
Let me get everything straight here. Okay. Now, folks, can you hear me?
Yes, sir,
I want to
Dan.
continue. You okay,
We're good.
Robbie? Okay, good. Folks, I'm sorry for that. I had a computer outage here. As we go into the virtual world, sometimes we realize how dependent are we on computers and phones and things, and I'm glad to be back. When everything went down, I was talking about moving equipment. First of all, I want to put some of the things off on drivers, but before I do that, I want to talk about something we need to be really concerned with, especially as tractors get taller, machinery gets bigger, combines get bigger. We're going down the road, and the next thing we know, we clip a power line going across the road. County over from us, a couple of years ago, that happened and killed the operator. You need to really watch. This is where it's good to have somebody that will drive along with you in a car or a truck, kind of slow down the traffic, keep them from coming up behind you, and you watch for those power lines. Very, very uncomfortable when 1,200 volts run through the truck. Number one cause of accidents on the highway with tractors going down, or with machinery going down, is when the vehicle that you're driving makes a left-hand turn. It's just like we know in our driving experience in automobile, and us older folks can remember before it was legal to make a right-hand turn after stop. Now we pull up, we stop, we turn right. Left-hand turns have never gotten there. Well, a few places they have. And we make a left-hand turn. You always want to make sure that you're seeing enough to make that turn safely. And again, I want to encourage people, when you move equipment, to have someone else come in a vehicle in front or behind you, or both. But we all know sometimes that's not possible because we don't have enough operators to do that. Before the break there, the unintended break, we were talking about relative speed when moving a vehicle. Again, you're moving a vehicle at 5 to 10 miles an hour. You as a motorist have got to realize that. The motorist is going to have to take some of the responsibility to slow down when you see those flashing lights. And again, the newer vehicles, this helps with the sensors that sense this and will slow you down, or at least make you aware of, that there's somebody in front of you going much slower. Those people over in Eastern Virginia, you run into this quite often where people are moving machinery. Stay off, and again, we see this all the time. And on the interstates, of course, we all know it's against the law to drive on the interstate with a slow-moving vehicle. So you're going to have to find another way to get to where you're going. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we leave is tractor safety. And I've touched on that a little bit, but we want to make sure, and again, folks, I want to go back to what I talked about at the beginning of this talk. I almost said class. When you taught 40 years, I almost said I was teaching a class here this morning. Some simple things to look at, and I want to go back to the children again. Try to leave them in a safe place with somebody to make sure that they're safe. Don't go down to, we all have done this, us older folks, down the highway with a kid sitting on our lap. You want to make sure that they're in a safe place. Dad can't hold on to kids. Grandpas can't hold on to kids if you're in an accident. I was driving down the road yesterday in my truck with my 2 dogs, and I can't hold on to a dog and have an accident. We want to make sure that those children, again, are in a safe place. Robbie, does anybody have any, that concludes my talk. Does anybody have any questions before we leave?
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you joining us and giving the presentation. Is there any questions or comments for Dan this morning?
And again, I apologize for my computer going down.
Oh, that's perfectly fine, Dan. We've all been there through this. It's a learning process. I just make a comment. There's been a couple more things that have been just recently added to the chat window. Dr. Grisso, he posted a link there to the page that he was referencing, the Farm Health and Safety page, where you can find a lot of great resources and publications that a lot of the folks at Virginia Tech have put out. And then Laura has also posted a few links to some publications there on equipment safety and road safety. So some really great resources there to just take a look at. I know this is a topic that most agricultural producers tend to kind of not spend a lot of time on. We all take things for granted and think, you know, that it hopefully we move along and hope that it doesn't happen. But I think it's really important, as Dan said, especially now with conditions changing and a lot more youth around, kids around the farm. You know, people are really kind of put in unique situations right now with things that we've been experiencing over the past few months. So I think it's a great time to you know, refresh some of these topics and just take a few moments to overview this stuff and see what can actually happen. So thank you, Dan, for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Dan this morning before we finish up? All right. Well, we appreciate it, Dan. Thanks again for joining us. I think there are some links, as I said, in the chat window to some of those other resources. So feel free to share those, access those at your leisure. Hope everyone stays safe. Please be safe out there during the harvest season. We certainly don't want any accidents if we can help it. So please be safe with that. If you have any questions or you would like additional training resources for your farm help or just grandkids, anything in general, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to get you those resources and help spread this information, because it is such vital information. So with that being said, we thank everyone again for joining us this morning. Thank you, Dan. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all for having me.
Yes, sir. And please, everyone, be safe. Thank you again. If you have a moment, if you could just fill out our brief evaluation at the conclusion of the program. The link is there on your screen now. It'll take just a few moments and let us know how we're doing. And if you have topics that are interesting to you, you'd like more information on, please share that with us. We hope next week our topic to be, the discussion will be on some land amendments. So we hope to touch on poultry litter, biosolids, those type of things. So please join us next week if you have interest in those topics. And lastly, I'd just like to thank again today's speaker, Mr. Dan Swafford, and the production team of Extension agents, Stephanie Romelchek, Laura Maxey-Nay, Trent Jones, and Mike Broadus. So just like to thank everyone for all their help to make this effort possible.
Guys.